He could be a good third pair, low end second pair guy on a different team. If he was making $5 million, sure. That's not the world that we live in. You got no retention. How do you get no retention on this? If they got Morgan Riley, if they took on Morgan Riley for nothing, I would have understood that more. Darnell Nurse, like, he just does nothing at a good level. Morgan Riley, you could just bring him in. He could be on your top power play. He could play 19 minutes a night in mostly offensive situations and help your young guys develop offensively. I just don't get what the point of bringing Darnell Nurse on this team is.
Before Darnell Nurse ever expanded his trade list to include the Sharks and the Ducks, there was another deal already sitting on the table. A deal with the Boston Bruins. And it collapsed, not because Edmonton got cold feet, not because Boston walked away. It fell apart because of one player and a single decision that changed the entire direction of the Oilers offseason. According to David Pagnotta of the fourth period, the Oilers and Bruins had actually worked out an agreement to send Nurse to Boston. The framework was done. The names were picked. But there was one problem nobody could get around. The player going back to Edmonton in that trade had a no-trade clause, and he refused to waive it. Pagnotta broke this down on the sheet, saying the two sides had a deal in place to acquire Nurse, but the player heading to Edmonton wouldn't give up his no-movement rights. And once that happened, the whole thing died on the spot. Edmonton had no choice but to pivot. And that pivot is exactly how they ended up going in a completely different direction, towards San Jose. Now here's where it gets interesting. Pagnotta never revealed the name of the player who blocked the move. He kept that part close to the chest. But when you actually sit down and go through Boston's roster, the list of players who even have no trade protection is shockingly short. And once you eliminate the names who obviously don't fit, the list narrows down fast. Start with the obvious untouchables. David Pastrnak has a full no-trade clause. Elias Lindholm has one too. So does Morgan Geekie. But realistically, none of these three were ever walking out of Boston in a deal built around bringing in a depth defenseman like Nurse. The Bruins simply aren't shipping out top-six scoring talent for cap relief on the back end. That part of the equation doesn't add up, so we can rule all three out immediately. Then you've got the players with limited no-trade protection. Casey Mittelstadt can block trades to 9 teams. Pavel Zacha can block 8. Tanner Jeannot has some level of protection as well. But none of these three make sense either, mainly because none of them are the type of player Edmonton was actually targeting in an ice swap. The Oilers weren't looking for that kind of return, so these names get crossed off too. That leaves 5 players. Charlie McAvoy, Hampus Lindholm, Nikita Zadorov, who can block trades to 16 teams, Will Borgen, a newer arrival with 15-team no-trade protection, and goaltender Jeremy Swayman. Let's go through these one at a time, because this is where the real answer starts to take shape. Charlie McAvoy is completely off the table. He's not just a piece of Boston's roster, he's one of the central pillars of their entire defensive structure. There's no version of this where the Bruins are quietly shipping out McAvoy in a trade for Darnell Nurse. That doesn't happen. Jeremy Swayman is just as unlikely. After the way he bounced back in net last season, rebuilding his form and re-establishing himself as Boston's guy between the pipes, there's almost no chance the organization was willing to move on from him. Not after investing that much time and money into stabilizing their goaltending. Swayman's off the list too. So really, when you strip away the players who obviously wouldn't move and the players who don't fit what Edmonton needed, you're left with basically 2 realistic names. Hampus Lindholm and Nikita Zadorov. Both are veteran, physical, experienced defensemen. Both carry contracts that stretch multiple years into the future. Lindholm is signed for 4 more seasons at $6.5 million a year. Zadorov is locked in for 4 more years as well, at $5 million annually. Either of these two would have made some sense as a return piece in a deal designed to offload Nurse's contract, but obviously, we'll probably never get official confirmation on exactly which one it was. What we do know is how the story actually played out. Once the Bruins deal collapsed, Edmonton didn't sit around waiting. They moved quickly in a new direction, eventually striking a deal with the San Jose Sharks instead. In that trade, the Oilers sent out Darnell Nurse and got back defenseman Shaki Mukhamadullin, along with prospect Zach Sharp. And just like that, Edmonton wiped Nurse's $9.25 million cap hit completely off the books. But here's the part that makes you stop and think. If that Bruins trade had actually gone through instead, how different would Edmonton's entire summer look right now? Would bringing in a player like Hampus Lindholm or Nikita Zadorov, both locked into long-term deals worth $5 to $6.5 million a year, have completely changed the math on Edmonton's cap sheet? And more importantly, would it have taken the Oilers out of the running entirely for other depth options they were exploring on the back end, including names like Ryan Shea? It's one of those situations where a single no-trade clause, one player simply saying no, ended up rerouting an entire trade chain. Instead of adding term and money in a defenseman coming from Boston, Edmonton walked away with a younger, cheaper option in Mukka Medellin, plus a legitimate prospect in Sharp. Whether that's a better outcome for the Oilers long-term is still up for debate. But it's wild to think how close this deal came to going a completely different way. Sometimes in the NHL, it's not the general managers who decide where a trade goes. It's the players. And in this case, one quiet decision from a Bruins player, someone we may never even get officially confirmed, ended up shaping the entire direction of Edmonton's blue line heading into next season. So the real question now becomes this. Did the Oilers get lucky that this fell through, or did they actually lose out on a better long-term piece by pivoting to San Jose? That's the debate Oilers fans are going to be having all summer long.